If you look good, you play good. Well, the Broncos looked really good on Sunday against the Cowboys, and they just really look good in those old uniforms. And a lot of baseball buzz, talking about Shohei Ohtani. If he came to Colorado, would he crack the starting lineup?
Oh, here we are. Fellas, defying the odds once again. We're back. I don't know if by popular demand, but we are back. Ron Zappolo, Woody Paige, Tom Green. What's on our minds today?
Well, I know that I'm higher on the Deadpool than you two guys are. And I'm not talking about the Marvel comic. I would take me, if you're at home and you're in a Deadpool.
We have a lot of ground to cover today.
We do.
We were talking about Chauncey Billups and the gambling scandal, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. Who knows what happened to Deion Sanders and the Buffs in Salt Lake City?
Well, they got their ass kicked.
There's that. Shohei Ohtani.
What kind of question was that? What happened to them?
Well, like, did you maybe bother to show up for the game? Would have been something I'd like to know a little bit more
They're
about.
not any good.
Well, to that level, that was.
You know, not to get off on a tangent, but I watched Utah play BYU, and I saw that game, and it didn't come as a surprise that Utah.
But not a juggernaut type of.
But they're a lot better than.
We'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to talk about Shohei Ohtani in the World Series.
What happened to CSU and Wyoming?
We got to get to the Broncos here.
Yeah, let's talk about the Broncos because that was an impressive show and one that the offense needed and that Bo Nix in particular needed. But boy, it started funny. They took the ball and gave it right away.
Yeah, they did.
I said to a close friend of mine just before the game started, I said, they're going to score 40 today. Why is that, he said. And I said, if you look at the history of this series, they have dominated the Cowboys, won 9 out of 13, I think. And I said, they've scored 40 points 5 times. There's something about the Cowboys that when you get to a hole playing golf, and you both do, you go, I feel comfortable on this hole. I think the
fits
Broncos,
my eye.
And conversely,
yeah, there are other
this hole
holes.
has me.
So, but that's when you try to measure teams in the NFL these days, and everyone will measure the Broncos. It's a week-to-week league off of that game. But I think it's really hard to measure teams in the National Football League because one week you're playing Carolina and they don't show up, and another week you're playing a team that's really good. So who are the Broncos?
Well,
I don't know yet.
I don't know yet either. And the thing that I came away with watching that game, Dallas beats anybody at home, and they can't beat anybody on the road. And the other thing, I think the Broncos really had a professional effort.
Yeah.
I mean, it was from start to finish what we wanted to see out of them. Would you agree?
all I could think about is Sean Payton finally figured out you don't throw 12 screens in a game.
And you run the ball.
Actually can run the football with it. Harvey.
R.J. Harvey.
Had 3 touchdowns.
R.J. Harvey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Dobbins at 100.
Dobbins is a 100-yard guy that, like the old days, it's like a C.J.
What you're saying,
Anderson.
Woody, is they're a running team. They should be a running team. Even Shanahan with his
you have
best
that,
teams.
Yes. When you have a defense is as good, and their defense now is going to struggle because
Patrick
the
Surtain.
best cornerback in the league is going to be out, and they admit that they put the entire defensive concepts around one guy, and he's not going to be there for 4 or 5 weeks. That if you play that kind of defense, you can be, as you said, Mike Shanahan ran the football,
Yep.
and he was a guy that wanted to throw it 40 times a game.
But you're exactly right. But he knew I can run the ball, and I can not just do it with Terrell Davis.
Yeah.
I can do it with Reuben Drones, Mike Anderson, Olandis Gary. He knew that he had a running team. This looks to me like a running team.
But here's the measuring stick that's hard to gauge because the Cowboys were so bad defensively. Those young receivers stepped up, Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin making plays. Bo Nix, after the interception, looked extremely comfortable. The running game does a lot of that, sets the table for that. But it was against the Cowboys who really put up little resistance.
Yeah, they came into this game as the worst defense in the National Football League.
And then
proved
they proved it.
They came out of this game with a defense that's worse than the University of Colorado.
That's not good. They get Houston next, and instead of looking at the Houston game, I think you look at this next month and the idea of playing without Pat Surtain,
Well,
as you
especially
alluded to.
when you go play the Chiefs, which will be their next really super big game. And to play the Chiefs, who now have their offense at a level that Mahomes says is the best he's seen since he's been there, that's a little scary.
But I do believe that we're talking about a playoff team here in Denver. We're talking about a team that can win the AFC West. They can beat the Chiefs once. If they go undefeated at home, which I thought looked possible before the season started, they're going to be in a position to win 3 or 4 games on the road. And even without their best player, I believe that they can get through this because they've got more depth than I've seen in forever.
Well, Vance Joseph gets a lot of credit for what they do defensively, but he will now be challenged. He's going to have to re-scheme that defense.
It's the worst player to lose at the worst position to lose, I think. And I just don't think you put the next man up and say, okay, we're going to play a rookie now, even this kid who was picked high. Patrick Surtain is not the most valuable player on the Broncos. He's the best defensive player, arguably, in the league. You don't replace people, and not like that.
Well, Riley Moss got called for pass interference while going to his car after the game. So,
but if you're
he's an interesting study though, because he does get flagged a lot, but it seems like they're tough calls. Like
you
he's
think
playing
he was
well.
flagged a lot before. Now he will be playing for the next month the other team's top wide receiver.
But is it possible that the officials don't like him because he's a white cornerback?
I heard Bomani bring that up. I wasn't so sure that was.
It doesn't look right.
Fair or fun, but he, like Ron said, the challenge for Riley Moss is only going to grow.
It's going to get worse.
In the
And
next
by the
month
way,
or
you
so.
bring up the officiating. I hate to bring up officiating, and this is just a general. It's bad right now.
Well, the tush push issue has resurfaced.
Well, the good news about that is that egregious call is probably going to end the tush push.
It could be the big part. Let's jump over to baseball because we've been watching amazing. It's been a great World Series already, but that Game 3, 18-inning affair, Freddie Freeman wins it. But the story of the game was the superstar Shohei Ohtani and what he did. Ron, you were talking about his numbers.
Listen, when a guy gets up 9 times and makes it on base 9 times, that is what happened to Barry Bonds a generation ago, where you just walk him no matter what the situation is. And we now have to look at Ohtani, I think, in a more historic way and say, I know it's early, he's not done with his career, but where do we place him?
Well, we're seeing the same thing in baseball that we've seen in basketball the last 5 years, where you say greatest player in the world is a guy from another country that and I believe that people don't want to give up on their heroes that were American-born heroes.
That's true.
Ichiro had to go through that. When he came here, he was one of the best players in the league, defensively and offensively. But we're seeing this with the Joker. People don't want to give him the credit that he deserves. I mean, the guy's now, just to touch on another subject, he's gone through 3 games with 3 triple doubles. I believe, and I'm sorry guys, I'm way off base here, baseball, but I think that what he's decided this year is that he's not going to average 30 points. He's going to average a triple every game all year long.
You make a fair point, though, because I think the subtle criticism of Jokic over the years was he doesn't look the part. We look at Ohtani the same way. He
does.
He's Japanese. Wait a minute. He's 6'5", 235.
Well, let's talk about, because you do have stereotypes. We always thought the European hockey players were soft. Yeah, well,
Right.
maybe they were, but they aren't anymore.
Nope.
You tend to think of an Asian player as being diminutive, somewhat small.
Yeah.
Ohtani looks like Thor.
Paul Bunyan.
He's huge. I'd say, you look at his game and you see the holes in his game. He doesn't hit right-handed. And that's it, I think.
The guy has already had 2 games in this particular postseason that will go down in infamy. When you throw 6 shutout innings, strike out 11, and hit 3 home runs. That's a pretty good night. And then the night he had this week, when he reaches base 9 times, and by the way, we almost forget, hit 2 home runs and 2 doubles.
That's why they walked him the last 4 times.
That's why he got walked every time. I can't find the words to describe what he's doing. Babe Ruth is the last guy.
Well, that's why you were on TV, and I'm a writer.
That's right. You should come up with the words.
I have a columnist I knew said that game was indescribable, and then he used 800 words.
He wrote 2 columns on it. But it's you look at these players, and you have to take the moment, because we forget sometimes, and it's only years later when you're trying to explain it to someone what he did. And it's like we think of here in Colorado that, we're getting to watch Jokic play at this level. And you're getting to see, not just in Los Angeles, but around the world, people watch
in
Shohei
Miami,
Ohtani.
think about Messi.
Messi,
Throw
yeah.
Messi into that discussion about
But
great players
Messi,
in the sports.
He came to America nearer the end. And when Ichiro came in, he was in the middle of his career. He had a great Major League Baseball career, but we didn't get him in his youngest years. We're getting to see Ohtani more or less from start to finish, whether he was killing time.
Can I throw up one more thing
Anaheim.
about that game that I absolutely loved as a baseball fan? I'm lying in bed watching the last 7 innings, and this is what's great about baseball. There are guys on the mound for both teams that I've never heard of who look like Sandy Koufax, man. They are throwing BBs, and John Smoltz couldn't believe it. And these guys who were buried in both of those bullpens do not break glass in case of emergency. The guy with the red beard, who I can't remember his name for the Klein or whatever. He looked like Nolan Ryan. That's what's great about baseball. People come out of the woodwork.
Well, there were plays. I mean, there were incredible plays.
Guys getting thrown out at third and home.
You see, I mean, as much baseball as we've watched over the years, that you see once a month, you go, man, that throw from right field. Well, guess what? We saw the throw from right field. We saw the throw from first base. We saw the throw at home plate. We saw defensive plays
we did.
in a game where we're all talking about the offense that happened last night. And that you have Clayton Kershaw, one of the all-time great, future Hall of Fame pitchers, come into a situation, go 3-2, 2 outs, and he is
the base is loaded.
and he is in a situation that would have been talked about for weeks. Either way,
he got a little fortunate too, because he threw a couple of balls there that the guy went after.
So I think one thing this does is it whets everyone's appetite for the 26 Rocky campaign.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just, you start thinking, man, can't wait till baseball comes back.
What would it take to get Ohtani?
Make a package.
Someone wrote to the owner of the Rockies 2 years ago when there was questions about where Ohtani was going to go. He was playing for the Angels. And they said to the owner, why don't you bring him in for the end of the year? And I said, to myself, I said, that's one of the great questions of all time. You will never have a player like Ohtani in Denver. Yes, we've got one like that in basketball in Denver. And we have had 2 or 3 in football like that. It never happened. But that would have been at least that would have been entertaining if you had picked him up at the trading deadline and said, we're going to give you $15 million for the rest of the year. But it's a shame that a guy like that could hit 75 or 80 home runs. And I told both of you before we went on the air here that Jim Tracy and I became friends when he was manager of the Rockies. He had managed the Dodgers. And he said to me, the way we handled Bonds was to just walk him. That's what they decided to do. And he said, I walked him with the bases loaded. And nobody had ever done that. But he said he was less dangerous with the 1 RBI than if we pitched to him. And I think that's, sadly, in watching the game last night, I said, what would be the way you get away from that? You can't get away from that. That's part of baseball. But I think we're going to see a lot more of this the rest of this series, because if you're the manager of a team against him, you go, Just pass him every
Well,
time.
Yeah, I
no
mean,
matter what.
I don't know if they'll intentionally walk him, but I think John Schneider will say to his pitchers, "Do not throw this man a strike."
If you throw a strike,
Well, even the last
yeah.
time he was up, they
Like,
really weren't pitching
That
to him.
that was the intentional walk. They
There's a-
didn't. Yeah.
there is, of course, the big story that comes from basketball, but affects all sports, and it certainly has a lot of heartbreaking ramifications here in Colorado. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So we're learning a lot of stuff here on After the Horn. One of them is, while we did bring back Woody's chalkboard, it's great on TV. It doesn't work as well on audio. So
Should we read that to
yeah,
the...
let's read it out loud.
enjoy nightly romantic walks to the wine cooler.
See, there you go. So
So
now
if
you
you
have
have a wine cooler, you can relate.
chalkboard coverage on for our audio listeners as well. This week, the biggest story was the news about the NBA gambling scandal surrounding Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups as well. And it's just something that you think of what it means to Chauncey Billups, but what does it mean about sports and that relationship with gambling right now? It's the most complicated thing at all because gambling has become as large a part of, it's always been a big part of sports, but now it's out public front facing as well.
It's shocking and sad to me, having known Chauncey since he was in the 8th grade and would go to gym. He was playing varsity ball at GW in the 8th grade. My daughter went to school with him, graduated with him. I have known him throughout his career at Colorado, after being at George Washington, his career that ended up being drafted by the Nuggets but going to the Celtics.
Yes.
And then coming here and playing and assuming that he was going to be, his dream job was to be the general manager of the Denver Nuggets, not to be the coach of the Denver Nuggets, and he ends up in Portland. And I won't drone on here, but he and his agent called me once and said, would you write his autobiography? And I said, yeah, I would do it, but I'd do it for kids. This is where I'm going with this. Mr. Big Shot. And don't write your life story. Write what kids should do. And that's all I thought about this past week in regard to this is he had such a profound influence in terms of young people who thought he was the perfect player.
Not just kids,
Good
though.
guy.
Not just kids.
And I didn't write that autobiography because when I told him what kind of money he could make writing, he said, I think I'll stick with basketball. But you don't play someone like him. If you remember, Michael Jordan, another friend, went through that period of time where people thought gambling was, and it was a problem for him. I mean, think about the people that have been associated with gambling. Phil Mickelson. There's a power level and a competitive level among athletes that is addiction in terms of gambling, of controlling situations.
Adrenaline.
And that's all I can see with Chauncey because he's a Hall of Famer, recent Hall of Famer. He's a man who's got more money than he'll ever be able to, but there's a competitive nature that must have been missing in his life. We don't know the details, but I think that we were talking about people in Denver that Chauncey stands above most everybody that ever came out of the Denver Prep League in regard to what they accomplished in
The
professional
problem is this
sports.
isn't about gambling. This is about cheating. This is about rigging. This is about fixing. And, you know, with him, it's not necessarily sporting events, but as you know, anybody who gets caught in these sort of situations can be compromised.
We
and
all
it's a
knew
bad
Chauncey.
light.
All three of us know Chauncey really well. I've known him since he was in high school. Yeah. I just saw him right before training camp at we share a favorite restaurant and got to spend about a half hour with him. He was so excited to go to camp. He thought the Blazers were going to take the next step. So on a personal level, I am so saddened because I hold Chauncey up to a higher level than most. Because I agree with Woody. Chauncey's everything you tell your kids you want in an athlete. He's a good person. He cares about his community. He's got a wife and kids. He's one of us. He's friendly. He's got a sense of humor. I remember during the NBA strike, this had to be a decade ago, I'm with my wife and another couple at Elway's, and Chauncey comes up to the table, and he says hello. And I said, are you going to go back to work? And he goes, well, I guarantee I'm going back to work. And I go, well, how do you know? And he goes, I got 14 million reasons why I'm going back to work. He had everything going for him. But I also understand that gambling is an addiction. And I don't know Chauncey well enough to say right here, that can't be true.
But you said the one thing, I just got to throw this in here. Even though he is not being accused of throwing games as a coach or betting on his team like Pete Rose did, it's still gambling if you're playing poker.
Sure,
but the card games are a big part of every road trip. Players play in the air.
Oh,
players
sure.
play in their hotel rooms. Players, and again, this is where innocent till proven guilty. We don't know enough about the case to say that this is all fact at this point. But it's the cheating part when you talk about especially what kids think about you. You know, it's one thing if you go play high stakes poker and you lose your shirt, or you had a great career and you lost all your money gambling.
But the bigger issue, Tom, yes, cheating it's at the core of what we're talking about. But the bigger picture issue, let's take Chauncey out of the play, Terry Rozier out, anybody else, Dante Jones, whoever's involved. When these professional leagues decide, hey, there's tons of money to be made in gambling. In the last 5 years, we've seen a sea change where these leagues, you can't watch an NBA game without going at halftime and saying, hey, if you want to get Memphis -2 right now, go to your DraftKings. They're in bed with gambling.
But, Ron, I have to stop you, though. We're talking about, the professional leagues are. Guess who just said to the NBA, you need to come up here before us? Well, guess what? Those us are the ones who approved gambling in sports. I'm talking about Congress.
Right.
We're talking about being in bed. This is congressional. This is professional sports leagues. This is networks where I worked for ESPN for 25 years. We were told for years and years and years, don't ever mention the odds of a game.
The point spread.
But for over 100 years, from the Black Sox of 1919 to CCNY to Horning and Karras in the 60s, gambling, the illegal and legal aspects of gambling, they need the game to be on the up and up. They can't have the games being fixed because then people aren't going to play their games. They need to be the ones, if you're DraftKings or if you're Bet365 or whichever company you want to be, they need the game to be clean. Because if it's not clean, people are going to shy.
But listen, we already know history. The NBA had a referee that was throwing games. He wrote a book. He went to jail. This comes as listen, we've all covered sports a long time. And I've told a lot of my friends, and I bet you have too, I know that I covered some games that were fixed. I know I did.
Really?
Yes. I have a friend of
Maybe
mine
I'm naive.
who played in a game who contends to this day that it was a fixed game. So I think it's happened. I think Tom's right. I think gambling has always been a part of this. But to your point, most people feel that the games are on the up and up. Don't they?
Right. Well, what I think the NBA is worried about is not that games are being fixed. They're worried like how deep this goes. You worry about the NFL, MLB, NHL.
I think
all
they're all
sports
worried
now
right
are going.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Because you also think, who do you need to fix a game? Well, you don't necessarily need LeBron James or the star of the game to fix it.
No, you don't. But this is what pokes a hole in that a little bit. I read somewhere Terry Rozier was making $22 million a year. Why, in God's name, would he
first,
fake
why
an
is he
injury
making $22
That's
million
another
a
question.
year?
But why would he fake an injury?
That's what we talked about, though, that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough. Why do people go from marijuana to cocaine?
Not
that
enough.
wasn't enough. Why do you go from $22 million to figuring out another way to make $3 or $4
Because
million more?
maybe you have gambling debts that are such that someone
Can
named
leverage
Louis
you.
comes to you and says, "Hey, you're gonna go under tomorrow night in Miami," and here's the other thing why I think we're not going to go down to the bottom with this. The casinos are helping these leagues out
Sure.
because they're letting these leagues know, hey, $250,000 was bet on Terry Rozier
Jonte
or
Porter
Jonte
go
Porter
under.
to go on the under. I think they're going to police it well. I do think other things will come out, but I don't think any of these leagues, because of this, are going to lose the feeling with their customers that the games are no longer on the up and
Clean.
up.
Yeah.
From when you guys started covering sports to now, what issues do we have? We have college athletes being paid tons of money, and that was a concern for years and years about possible fixing of
Yeah.
college games, and we see that on an occasional basis, more than it was regular basis, I would say.
College basketball, we've seen.
And so now we're into gambling being a problem in professional leagues when it's probably been a problem. I flew with a basketball team in Memphis long before there were charters that teams owned planes, and I would play in gin rummy games,
Right.
and I was scared of losing $30, truthfully. So I saw from the very beginning covering that I would go into hotels with the team, and they'd be in a room playing poker.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ever think about them fixing games, but I saw them get into trouble
Yeah.
losing
Sure. Lot of
money.
money.
But that's why I think when you touch on college sports, that's a real problem because college sports right now is out of control as far as money coming in, coming out, transfer portal, nil money. There's no regulation. There's no rhyme or reason. But you also think if you wanted to fix something, college sports, you have far many more players, far many more officials out on a field on a Saturday afternoon. And I don't know how college sports could, because they can't regulate anything, could keep an eye or have a legislative touch to try to prevent it from happening there.
To carry this to another level, how many times during a game do you hear, oh, the referees have fixed this game?
Sure.
That people, you said most people think it's on the up and up, but people think that the Kansas City Chiefs get a break from every official, that Patrick Mahomes, in the game that was played, I watched some of that last
Right.
night.
Yeah.
It was funny last night that we have a game featuring two outstanding NFL teams, but you can't pull away from the baseball game.
Right,
Exactly. I know.
Everybody on it, like, oh, it's a World Series, but I can catch it in the eighth inning.
It was so
But
compelling.
you couldn't pull yourself away from the baseball game because every moment, if you tried to do that between innings, something's happening.
Exactly.
You better get back
better
there
get
in a
back
hurry.
to
So
it.
the pro leagues are talking about maybe trying to prevent the prop bets.
They should. In other words, in the NBA, my theory would be if I was king for a day, if I was Adam Silver, I would tell it, because he's in bed with it, I would let every team know only your top two players can be involved with prop bets. We don't want prop bets on the eighth or ninth guy.
How are you going to get away with that, Ron?
Because you're going to make a prop bet for Zeke Naji? Is that what was that what we've come to? Make the prop bets, Luka and LeBron, Jokic and Murray. You can go down every team and you can do it because when you
Designated prop guy.
yes, because these prop bets are what are getting teams in trouble. Terry Rozier didn't think that he was throwing a game. He thought he was throwing just the prop bet on himself.
Yeah, throwing a bone to
I'm
somebody.
willing to bet you, having not spoken to him, I don't think he viewed it as, I'm going to throw this game for the Heat. I'm just going to take myself out of the game. We'll still win the game.
Well, this puts Adam Silver in a spot because they had been investigating Terry Rozier and
Listen.
said it was all good.
Tom, they're not alone. The NFL last week, and again, this is after this story broke, I'm reading that Lamar Jackson was limited in practice on Wednesday and Thursday, was a full participant in practice on Friday, and then Saturday was ruled out of the game. That doesn't pass the smell test.
That
for
line
me.
moves
Yes.
on Lamar Jackson. He's a line mover.
Listen, I'm sorry, I'm cynical. Something's going on there. Something went on. You don't go from limited, full practice to the next day ruled out.
We might get to a point in the history of sports where it's going to be like professional wrestling of that you can't, the Congress passes a rule that you can't bet on it because you can't be sure.
That it's up.
You can't trust it.
Speaking of Congress, did you either of you find it interesting?
Whenever it starts speaking
I know,
of Congress,
I
I'm
know.
like,
I want to get. We could take this. But did either of you find it interesting? And I'm not trying to go politically here, but that Kash Patel deemed this story big enough that he showed up in his FBI
His
jacket
windbreaker, yeah.
and read the indictment. I just found that kind of interesting.
Why would you, in this day
Well,
and time, find anything
you know,
that's going on
'cause there
in
might be-
sports or politics?
a camera or a microphone
Yes.
is going to be there
It was-
too. So
Doesn't Kash Patel have more important things to worry
But
about?
I think, Dan, that given that he is such a part of our history of covering sports in Denver, and that he's a part of the landscape of Denver for so long, and what he accomplished, Chauncey Billups, a Hall of Famer. I played golf with him in a BMW tournament with Ernie Els, and he got so much more acclaim from the fans
Sure.
Right.
than Ernie Els, one of the top 3 golfers of a 10 or 12-year period. And I hope this story has some way a happy ending, but I'm so afraid
Yep.
that it's never going to happen.
I think only
Yeah,
one
I
player
agree
would
with
have
you.
been one
Yeah.
Colorado athlete of recent would have been more surprising. It would have been Tebow, but after that, it's Chauncey. Would have been
You know, Chauncey's one of us. Chauncey.
Tebow was never us.
He wasn't us.
no. But what I mean is
Chauncey's
just
us.
you think of a guy who would
Yeah.
never be involved. You'd go Tebow. Chauncey might be second on that list of guys you thought he doesn't need it. He's got his head on
I don't
straight.
know that
He's
I've
got-
ever
can handle
met a
it.
person that came in contact with Chauncey Billups and didn't like him. That's over a 40-year period.
Let me give you a 1-minute story to end this on a light note, which it has no light.
Yeah.
Is
1 minute
we're
on the
playing
clock.
with Ernie Els. We're playing with Ernie Els in that tournament, the Pro-Am. And Ernie Els comes over to me and says, I don't really know Chauncey Billups. All I know is he's a guard. Why isn't he in training camp for the Broncos? And I go, no, he's not that kind of guard. And I'm explaining to him. I said, he's Mr. Big Shot. He's NBA champion. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's Denver's own. I go through all this stuff. And I said, let me introduce you to him. So we go over to Chauncey, and Chauncey's so excited, just taking up the game of golf.
Yeah,
He was like
avid.
16 or
Yeah.
17, and he loved it. And I said, Chauncey made Ernie Els. Ernie Els says, Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot, one of the greatest guards in the history of the NBA, MVP in the NBA Finals. And man, you the way you handled it, and you're Denver. And then he goes through the whole thing. And we walked away, and I said, you repeated everything I said, Ernie. Nice job.
Thanks, Woody. There's a lot of excitement in the air because it's time to play It's Your Move.
Oh, of
so you
course.
can kind of, that palpable, tingly feeling you get.
I'll go pawn to pawn 1 there. Okay. Well,
Let's see what we're taking a look at. It's Your Move. All right, choose a Broncos wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders, Vance Johnson.
as much as I like Vance Johnson, enjoyed his company, he was highly entertaining. Emmanuel Sanders for many reasons. He wasn't the first pick. Elway wanted somebody else, couldn't get him. I can't remember the guy's name, and he brought in Emmanuel Sanders. He turned out to be terrific. He helped him win a Super Bowl.
I'm going to move around here because it's my move.
It's your move.
I'm totally disagreeing
You're
with
going
you.
to go VJ.
I thought Emmanuel Sanders came to the Broncos when he turned down the Chiefs. He was going
Right.
to take it. But it's got to be Vance Johnson for one reason. 3 amigos. They were the original 3 amigos. You had,
Yes.
who else was?
Ricky Nattiel and Mark Jackson.
Mark
Yes.
Jackson.
And so when you put the 3 of them together, that trio,
we're okay.
Wait a
Emmanuel
minute.
Sanders.
You're going to tell me that, and I love Mark Jackson, who's a friend of mine to this day. You're going to tell me that Mark Jackson, Vance Johnson, and Ricky Nattiel were better than Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders?
No.
But
No, I didn't say that.
And I'm usually the
I
guy
thought-
that likes the old guys.
The
but
only
in this-
picture I see is Emmanuel
Vance
Sanders.
Johnson,
I
yeah.
don't
Both
see
of them.
Demaryius
Well,
Thomas on there.
And
Is that-
neither of the other guys for Three Amigos are on the screen.
Thank
so that
Natasha,
your
thank
point
you for
is
sticking.
moot.
Way to go, Natasha. Thank you.
thank you. So I will say this: but the one thing that these two guys were both great at was getting in front of a microphone.
Yes, they were.
If there was a microphone, they would
They
both get
found
in
it.
front of it. I'll say this, though. I thought Vance Johnson, for all of the good things he did and the highlights he made, was a very inconsistent player. Emmanuel Sanders, I thought, was made out of leather. He got drilled time and time. He'd
He
always
never
get
dropped
up.
a pass.
He was
Never
he was much better. So I think, Woody, you're not only way off base, that it's a joke that you would even say that. This is the angriest I've ever been.
Hey, we wanted him to take a stand, right, Woody?
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
I can't believe I
Well,
lost my
guess-
temper.
Guess what? Want to bet?
Well, not
Very
right
good.
now. All right, here we go.
All right.
Eddie Royal going up against Marvin Mims. It's
Oh, God. Can I answer that one?
jump in.
Rick Upchurch. It's not even close. Rick Upchurch.
Greatest
Rick
returner in
Upchurch.
team history.
Greatest returner maybe in the history of the NFL.
Should have been a
It's-
Hall of Famer.
Yes. Rick Upchurch. These two guys couldn't carry Rick's
I
purse.
told Red Miller that I was writing a column and I wanted his reaction to it, that he should put Rick Upchurch 20 yards behind center
And just
and toss it back to him, and it would be like every play would be
like
a
a punt
return.
return.
And Red Miller said, I thought you were crazy. You have just proven it.
So one of the things we got to do here is get a new
No,
producer for It's Your Move,
Eddie
because you
Roy-
guys don't answer the question.
because
Eddie
it's
Roy-
not. You know
Eddie-
why?
Eddie
It's a
Roy-
bogus question.
Eddie Royal
they have similar
was the
stats.
most, you know, you're talking about Vance Johnson. Eddie Royal was the most underachieving Broncos
You know what I
wide
want to say?
receiver ever.
Marginal NFL player.
Yeah.
Eddie Royal.
So it's your choice. Most marginal NFL
Eddie
player, Eddie
Royal.
Royal would be your.
Marvin Mims is an incomplete, but do not besmirch the legacy of Rick Upchurch by putting those two guys up for that question.
Except you could go with this. This is going to go viral because it's going to be all over X or what
Okay.
was called Twitter. Why isn't he called Marvelous Marvin
Marvin Mims.
Mims?
He should
And
be.
then you change it to 3M? Huh. Hello.
I
Is
like
that a
it.
great
But it's
nickname?
also because like the Three
3M.
Amigos got better with their nickname.
That's true.
They
And
were-
Marvelous Marvin Mims
That's
would
why
get better.
I brought it up and you're laughing at me, but they
No.
were the only Broncos players other than Peyton Manning and John
Well-
Elway that were ever on Johnny Carson.
That's
show.
true.
They
There you
got
go.
But I
before
think
the Super Bowl.
before you can be marvelous Marvin Mims,
You gotta be
You have to be
marvelous.
like halfway decent Marvin Mims.
Well,
and then
make-
we'll get to marvelous.
Make mine Marvin here. Let's go to the next one, and it's your move. All right.
Now we're
Broncos
talking.
trash talker Shannon Sharp versus Aqib Talib. This is a true
That's a-
heavyweight bout.
That is a heavyweight bout. You are right, Tom. That would require some thought because
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
which
It's Shannon Sharp for one reason only. Remember the Kansas City Chiefs defensive end that ended up his career with the Broncos?
Neil Smith.
Neil Smith is across from him, and he says to Neil Smith, I'm dating your girlfriend. And Neil Smith gets a
Jumps
I'm
offside.
jumps offside.
Yeah.
unsportsmanlike. And so you figure, well, that's it. Before the next play, he recites her telephone number. That brought Neil Smith. That was the best trash talk because Neil Smith now knows that he's just not trash talking to him. He's telling the
You're
truth.
right. I'm going to go with Shannon too, but I think Shannon was funnier than Aqib Talib.
Yeah.
Aqib Talib's the guy that might rip your necklace off and feed it to you. Shannon
Chain, by the
had a
way.
great
Chain.
chain. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Shannon had a great sense of humor. Do you remember that great NFL Films one when they're playing the Patriots and
and
he
he
gets
calls
on the
them-
phone?
The National
President
Guard.
Clinton, send in the National Guard. We're killing the Patriots.
So the one thing, both these guys continue to still bring the
Yes,
trash. They
they
still
have.
now in their
In their
careers
post
afterwards,
careers.
they're
I
both
thought-
good at it. But I'll take Aqib not just to be different,
Okay.
but because Shannon will at times polish an answer. Aqib
Never did.
is free flowing.
He's
what he's
unvarnished.
feeling.
Unvarnished.
Oh, I
Unvarnished.
gotta do some polishing for you guys, so the internet's not mad at you. It was Derek Thomas.
Derek Thomas,
not
and not
Neil
Neil
Smith.
Smith, who's
Derek
who
Thomas.
Oh, okay.
Shannon baited from across
Yes.
the line of
Okay.
scrimmage. The late Derek Thomas.
Congratulations.
All right, let's go to one more. We got
All
one
right.
more. It's your move. See who we have on deck here. All right, if you had to choose a ball carrier, Walter Payton or DeAndre Tillman. Now Payton, I don't know if you guys remember him, is a running back of the Bears.
I remember he seemed to be pretty good.
Yeah, very good running back.
Okay,
DeAndre Tillman.
We can move on from that one. It might be time for grinding your gears.
This may grind your gears, Ron. Just the fact you had to make that choice.
You want to know what grinds my gears? I had two things that were bothering me, but I'll limit it to one.
No, do this. You take mine this week. You go ahead and do two.
No. You probably got a better one than me. Here's what's grinding my gears. So after the Broncos win over the Giants, truly one of the most incredible, remarkable games all of us have ever seen, Sean Payton takes the opportunity to tell the press, oh, by the way, I'm close to the Giants, and I talked to the Giant owner, and I told him, you got a great young quarterback there. We were kind of hoping you'd play the other guy and not play him until after our game. And I thought, you know what? And then Russell Wilson, who he was obviously talking about, came out and said, classless, but I expect that from a guy who's still bounty hunting. And you know what? It was a classless move. It was unnecessary. It was spoken from somebody who must be very insecure, and it proves one thing. Okay, guys? You can be a great football coach, which he is, and you can also be a grade A jerk, to say something like that.
That was an ego.
Yeah,
Ego
uncalled
shot,
for,
self-inflating.
man. Uncalled for. You don't kick people when they're down. You won. His career is over. You're riding high. You won. You don't need to do that.
I think he changed, though, somewhat. I've talked to my friends in New Orleans that his time in television, working for Fox as an analyst, he kind of changed. He's like a guy doing a podcast.
One of those
Kinda
guys.
is. One of us.
But he did. They said he was not quite like that he was on an ego trip in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the same of what he's become in Denver, that he does more analysis and more talk. Because initially when he got here, he was not responding the same way he's doing. Now he's almost doing a podcast when he does a press conference.
I wasn't as surprised that he said that, because he does have that gear, not to grind yours, but he does have that gear in him. We've seen it where he will take his shots at people. What was surprising was that was the comment that finally got Russell Wilson to
say
actually
something.
speak freely,
Yes.
as opposed to say,
I mean, Russell is a guy who doesn't say shit if he's got a mouthful.
Right.
And that comment compelled him to come back and answer. And then, to make it worse, Sean Payton goes back over the top and says, oh, I didn't really mean it as a, no, stop with that. If you say it, own it. You don't try to explain it away after Russell Wilson calls you out. If you really mean that, say it and own it. And hey, you and I spent our whole careers writing and saying stuff. Sometimes it got us in trouble. We always owned it. We showed up, we put our face on it,
Oh,
our
yeah,
name on
yeah,
it,
sure.
and the next day athletes could tell us how full of ourselves
and
we
you can
were.
even apologize for it if you think
And
I went too far.
If-
You could.
Or you could apologize.
Yeah.
Or you could
Or
say,
you
listen,
could take
I
a
was
hit
wrong.
like I did once from a basketball player named Larry Cannon. If you're out there, Larry,
Well, at least it's not like you've been sued. Oh, wait. We're saving that for another show. We're saving
Okay,
that
do
for another show.
either of you guys have another grinding my
yes, I
gears?
do.
Good.
Yes,
let me
I
hear.
do. And it was in my face last night again. Okay, enough. I met this guy at a Rockies game. I think it was an All-Star game, but I met him and talked to him, and he's a pleasant guy. And he said to me, I have no passions in life. I don't have a family. I have a company. I make a lot of money, and I just enjoy going to baseball games. And I said, you don't enjoy going to baseball games. You enjoy being part of the baseball game. enough, Marlins, man.
We've seen enough of you.
I look and I go, he's there in the middle, and he's taking selfies of himself. So last night, the two people, if I get sued, forgive me,
Again.
at Dodgers games, I don't want to see the rest of the World Series when they're in Los Angeles. Mary Hart, I like you. I don't care about seeing you on every pitch.
Every pitch. Yeah.
And Marlins, man, I don't want to see you in Toronto. He'll be in Toronto, and I met him, and he was a nice guy.
I'm sure.
And his company makes it so. For people who wonder about him, when there's not baseball season, he is working at his job, and he has but he takes all of his money and he spends $10,000 buying a seat.
Well, with
so
the
people
18-inning
can-
game, I think I speak for all of us when I say I miss the Ghost Runner.
I thought if that game went any longer, they'd introduce us to every paying customer. We saw about 87,000 celebrities.
I thought
Where
the
was Larry
game-
King? I thought they'd dig him up and show him.
I thought this game is going to go so long. The Rainbow Man,
It's going to be
314.
He's back. He's back.
You've forgotten about him.
I love him. The Rainbow Man was. It wasn't a big event.
No, he got us. Everyone
until
knew
you saw
John,
the Rainbow
John
Man.
316 was
Yes,
wasn't it?
the
Yes.
Rainbow Man. It wasn't a big deal unless he was there.
I know next week we'll have plenty to talk about with football, but this has been a great World Series. We'll get a chance to
man.
recap that. When we get
Again, it's been great. It's a reminder to all of us, and we're all baseball fans, how great baseball can be.
if you don't live in Colorado, baseball is so much fun. It is so. If you ever get a chance to get out of this
Go
state,
see a game.
and go see a game.
St. Louis,
As
Kansas
always,
City.
we invite you to provide us with your feedback. ATH@guerrillasports.net. We love to hear more from you, fellas. I know we have more to say, but
Hey, we'll
But
do
we'd
after
like
the
to hear
podcast.
less of us and more of you, actually.
but they're done with us. That's it for this week on After the Horn.